And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues, episode number 242. This is going to be a repeat appearance of Aiodhan Cochrane out of the United Kingdom. He was on maybe just less than a month ago. And he's going to come back and we're going to break down. He's going to break down some of the Bruce Lee quotes that I submitted to him. So I'm just waiting for him to get on here, and then we will get into it. So in the meantime, okay, hang on a second, because I remember last time we had a little bit of a problem with his iPad and what have you. So let's see if that's him. Yep, there he is. But you're horizontal. Aiodhan, if you can hear me, you're horizontal and you're still muted. So while he sorts himself out, let me do a little bit of selling here. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you enjoy my work and you'd like to support the program, please visit jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The Jeet Kune, the 4 tenets of Jeet Kune t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirt, hoodie, also as what do you call it, coffee mug, right? But of course, the best thing you can do is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune dialogues. Next, so my dialogue partner for next week isn't confirmed because I've got feelers out to a couple of individuals, and unfortunately nobody has confirmed yet. So you know, failing that, I'll just come on and you guys can just throw questions at me and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. But I do expect to have a partner confirmed probably by this evening. So where's Aiodhan? Not there yet, right? So let me just check and see who has checked in. Mark David Collins is here, Lance Lamont, Mark Black. Terry Valor, I think Terry Valor got beat by 1 second. Wow, Terry, you're slipping, you're getting old. Kenneth Knocknerep is there. Bucky Barreto. Mick Tully. All right, the usual suspects. All right, so we while we're waiting on Marge. So I got to tell you about this, right? I got this comment over on the YouTube about the James Bishop's second appearance. I think the guy was referring to this, and he's saying to me, he's like, aren't there any other people that you can interview? Why do you have repeat interviews or something like that, right? And I'm just thinking, okay, so we're on episode 242, right? So does that mean that I have interviewed 121 people twice? No, it's mostly 242 separate interviews. But this guy must have just come to the party, so he's not. He doesn't know what's up, right? As is the case with a lot of people who have stuff to say about things. All right. Yes, James Bishop, you did just hear your name. The guy was wondering why I was talking to you for a second time. I guess he'll be really disappointed when you and I hook up for a third time, for a third appearance on the dialogues. Okay, so who else is here? Mark Stewart, nice. Mike Yuski, okay, cool. All right. So okay, while we wait for Aiodhan, does anybody have any comments on what's been going on in the Jeet Kune world online this week? Anything that you want to discuss? Any questions you want to ask me? Mark, I don't know what that means. Right? Simon Alpin is here. Simon, yes. So Simon Alpin, a few weeks ago, had one of the best comments of all time that I had ever seen, because he was talking about essentially my interpretation of it. Simon, correct me if I'm wrong. He was talking about old school approach to Jeet Kune, where the emphasis was on like physical conditioning and development of tools on the equipment, and then development of tools and strategies and tactics and what have you through sparring. And if I remember correctly, he was saying a lot of that seems to have disappeared in favor of sets and series and all that stuff. And so he was kind of wondering what had happened to old school JKD. Okay, so hang on 1 second. Aidan's telling me that it won't recognize the link that you sent. Interesting. All right, well, let me create a new link, and see if it'll take that. Okay, guys, give me one second here while I do some behind the scenes. The joys of being your own producer. Right? Okay, all right, so Simon says that I was right. Okay, wait, let me catch up to where you guys are. John Nasir's here. Mark Medeiros, nice one. Anthony, groin kick and eye jab, effective. Well, there's an old saying, Bucky Barreto, that everybody is equal if they get finger jabbed in the eyes. Everybody's equal if they get hit in the throat and what have you. I don't know that everybody's equal if you get kicked in the groin, right? See, so here's one thing that you have to consider. Sometimes, right, and all the guys who work in security, in protective services and what have you, will probably back me up on this. When people are on drugs, they don't necessarily, there he is. What's happening, my friend? Oh, okay. All right. That's my fault. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pop you into the stream, and Bucky Barreto, you and I will finish up your question tomorrow when we meet up. So, Mr. Cochrane, how you doing?
I'm as loose as a goose with wheels on my feet. How's yourself?
Well, I'm fairly loose too, but not that loose. Right. Okay. So do you have the list? Because you won't believe this. My Microsoft Word conked out on me, so I'm still waiting for it to repair itself. Do you have the list that I sent you?
Yes.
You have it right there. Okay. All right. So for anybody who's joining who's not aware, when Aidan and I spoke last time, we kind of decided that we would take some of the better known, I guess, maybe some of them are not as well known, but just some of the Bruce Lee quotes that permeate the internet. And he was just going to give us his breakdown, his take on them. And so that's what we're going to do. So let's, as they say, rock and roll. So I think I found a copy of what I sent to you. So I think the first one was this one, which I believe the origin is in one of the letters. It's in the book Letters of the Dragon, and I think it was to, maybe it was to Pearl So, one of his friends or something. And he says, ever since I was a child, I have had this instinctive urge for expansion and growth. To me, the function and duty of a quality human being is the sincere and honest development of one's potential. Do you have that as your first one too?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So give us your take on that. Break that down for us, as they say.
It kind of reminds me of the Tao.
Mhm.
Originally, when there was a blank circle. And then eventually, when growth started to establish, it was basically on a kind of evolving cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when you had then it became the two complementary forces, and then everything started to become created. But if the one thing about Bruce Lee though from this particular quote, what I got, that nothing ever becomes conclusive, nothing ever becomes stale. There's
Mm-hmm.
no ending. There's the constant learning, for instance. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Now, check this one out. Did I ever give you the little kind of synopsis about the fire?
I don't think so. No.
Imagine you're in this cabin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've been told to basically stand by the fire. Out, outside, it's that cold, even the polar bears are wearing woolly hats and gloves. But you're not to remove from that fire. You are where you should be. But eventually, because of who you are inside, you're going to become resentful of the fire because you can't move from it. It's lost its glory, it's lost its impact. Then all of a sudden, someone asks you to deliver a parcel at the other cabin at the other side of the hill. So you put on your skins, you get yourself all warmed up, and up you go. But the snow, the elements are really going at you, and you have your head down and you're struggling, and you're now starting to feel the weight of your skins. Finally, you drop the parcel off, but on your way back, the weight of the skins is so heavy on you, you drop to the ground. One part of you is saying to you, I'm just going to stay here. But there's another part that says, get that leg up and move.
Mm-hmm.
You finally get yourself up, you beat through the elements, and you finally get to the other cabin. You quickly strip off, you dry yourself down. Where's the first place you're going to go to?
The fire.
The fire.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, in order to appreciate rest, you have to know unrest.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the only reason we can achieve that is by an ongoing process of experience.
Yeah.
Now, Bruce Lee he was a very vibrant, energetic guy, as
Let,
you know.
let me interrupt you. Do you think it's fair to use the word obsessed in describing Bruce Lee's interest in the Tao?
More, yes.
Okay.
And I think that it was also part of his driving force.
Yeah.
I also have a theory it was his father that introduced to him,
Oh,
because
really?
his father being a practitioner in Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
Tai Chi Chuan actually translates way of the ultimate fist,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very much a Taoist art
Right.
as opposed to Buddhism, like some of the Shaolin styles. Um, but to me, it's an ongoing process,
Yeah.
and there's no chains. It's freedom to go as far as you need to go in order to achieve.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's move on. If you, this one, if you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. Make at least one definite move daily toward your goal.
Right now, what happens there is some, especially in a journey in martial arts, people dream about the aim, but sometimes we forget that the learning and the fun is actually in the journey.
Mm-hmm.
When we see the end result of something, sometimes that may feel unachievable. So it's easy to pull back. So the learning is in the objective, while the aim is in its conclusive state. So if you look at, for instance, an artist, right? So if somebody was sitting there and he was commissioned to do an overall abstract portrait of something, the whole thing itself seems much. But if you break it down,
Right.
Set your brushes, get your oils selected, get things prepared for at a step at a time within your capability. Then sooner or later that brush is going to flow.
So people should never be dissuaded, right? Because they look at the end result rather
Yes,
than looking at the component parts,
that's it. So
right?
sometimes we need to take a few bricks off our load in order to make the journey more
Mm-hmm.
doable. And in a
Yeah,
sense, there is strength in the building of something as
right.
opposed to basically getting something when it's already finished.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that translates immediately into the art of the teaching of the art, right?
Yes,
Yeah. You got to be able to break it down for people because they'll see you, the seasoned practitioner, something, and they'll go, "Oh, I could never do that."
that spot on. And I
Right?
remember being in that position myself. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and I think I'm now also frozen, um, because whenever I get a better um, internet response, it bounces me, and then okay. So give me a second. Let me refresh.
No worries.
Okay, all right. Now, but here's something. Um, I just realized I had this right after. So he says here, make at least one definite move daily toward your goal. But then there's a pretty famous one. A goal is not always meant to be reached. It often serves simply as something to aim at.
Yes,
Are those contradictory in any way?
I think they're more or less saying the same thing, but only in
Okay.
different ways.
Okay.
So, trying to basically put myself maybe in his mind, it's the work that we do,
Hmm.
it's the everyday things. I mean, if we're, for instance, if you're looking at it from a training point of view, the work that we do on the pads, the work that we do on the bags,
Yeah.
the stretching, the build up, and all these things, if you take them all apart,
Hmm.
you know something? It's like walking into a room, right? And just imagine you see a leg in the corner, you see a head over in the other side of the corner, there's a body in the middle, and another leg somewhere else, and it looks senseless and chaotic. But as soon as you join it all together,
Right.
you've got you've perfect movement because everything works. But in order for that to happen, you have to join things together.
Yeah.
You got to make your legs work. You got to make your arms work. You got to cultivate your thinking so you can respond,
Right.
so you can actually express.
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you something. So my marketing mentor, a guy named Dan Kennedy, the very first live event that I experienced with him, I thought to myself, this guy is like the Bruce Lee of marketing. And I would say, this is probably the most important or most useful tip he ever gave me. And it's almost not, it's not verbatim, but it's what Bruce Lee says. Dan Kennedy says, learn to shorten the time between idea and first step to implement idea.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
because to me, what that does is, in order to do that, you think of something and you're like, you know what? Let me not try to perfect it in thought. Let me just do something with it. That takes courage. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Most people will sit back, go wrong, that could go wrong, these 7 things could go wrong, and then it's the whole paralysis by analysis thing, rather than just take the first step to implement it, and, as people say, clean it up as you go along.
That's it.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
That's
Yeah.
what I remember even Dan and Santo saying once, never rush movement.
Mm-hmm.
Do it slow so you can acknowledge your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you rush ahead, you're going to miss your flaws.
Okay.
And they're the very things that we need to train.
That's funny because a lot of people do that. You see people going fast to try
Yes,
it, right? To compensate or even overcompensate for not knowing what they're doing.
that's it.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Now, this one has always been to me, one of the most insightful things that Bruce Lee said or that he took from somewhere else and reported to us. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person.
Yes.
Okay. Break that down for us because I really like this one.
Where I basically, what I got from that is that we can become comfortable in this. Say, for instance, if you look at FMA for an example,
Mm-hmm.
when we start flashing with the box drills, going at it upside down, all over the place, and it gets faster and faster and faster. All you're doing is it's almost like a parrot. A parrot speaks, but it doesn't know what it's saying,
Yeah.
right? So in a sense, we can do that. But when I feel that Bruce was talking about when we work with others, that, for instance, could be, for instance, in the sparring.
Yeah.
Because in the sparring, you're going to get what you've cultivated,
Right.
right? And
Right.
you're also going to get what you need to cultivate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of on a personal level, back to Troy. When I first come up against Troy, he was a lot more skillful.
Yeah.
He was a lot more. So, in a sense, my truth, my true learning came from that experience.
Right. Yeah.
But in order for me to get to that place, I needed an extension, and so did he, another person. And that helps us to establish the reality of where we're at in our art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I one of the reasons why I appreciate this one is because I think it also applies to your interpersonal relationship, maybe even romantic relationships and what have you. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person. I think a lot of people, if you're having problems in your relationships, if you could just if you could just sit back and observe yourself in relation to the person you're involved with, you could probably learn a lot from that, huh?
Absolutely. And following on from that is where ego gets communication wrong,
Yeah.
is when you get those who maybe will eat 3 pages of a dictionary every morning for for their breakfast. So when they talk to you, they're using words bigger than Czechoslovakia, right? And in their minds, they feel that they're articulating,
Right.
but you're doing a Stan Laurel scratching your head, not knowing. So relationship is when sender and receiver have the ability to confirm understanding
Right.
of what's being transpired.
You just reminded me of something. We actually used to do that when we were kids because that's it was it in the early pages of the dictionary was where we came across what at the time, I don't know if it still is, was one of the longest words in the English language, anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Yeah, that's a mouth.
I remember that, right? Okay. All right. So let's see. Moving along. If you always put limits on everything you do, physical or anything else, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits, there are only plateaus, and you must not stay there, you must go beyond them. Ah, that's interesting. I'll tell you about that.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Um, when we put limits on ourselves, it actually breeds complacency.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, you see, is I'm a great follower of the actual journey as opposed to where it leads to. I've kind
Right.
of always been that way.
Right.
So in a sense, always have your gate open to explore new postures from other fields. And it's almost like go beyond because you are the gatekeeper of your own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sense, when we think we can't, we won't.
Right. Yeah.
So, in a sense, there's an old sage story where these two monks, stop me if you've heard it, they went to see the abbot, the famous abbot who had discovered enlightenment. And they took a vow of chastity. So on their way to visit the abbot, they came across a girl who was stranded on the other side of the river and couldn't get across because the way of the rivers was just a bit too choppy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the monks stepped over and carried her over to the other side. But as they're continuing the journey, the monk that carried the lady over could see that his brother was very subdued and he was very tense and he was very almost like angry, quite angry. He let it basically fester. And then it came to the point where the brother says, "Brother, what troubles you?" And he says, "I can't understand why you lifted that woman since we, what do you call it, had a vow of chastity. Why did you carry her for?" And his response was, "Brother, when I carried her, I let her down at the other side of the river. Why are you still carrying her?"
Yeah. You did tell me that one last time we met, but just in case there was nobody who had heard it.
So, in a sense, you see, is these are learning aspects of life and reality
Right.
that we come across in our journey.
Mm-hmm.
While if you flew in a plane to the place of destiny, you wouldn't have that learning to appreciate was on the other
Yeah.
side
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. It also touches on the ability to let go of things easily and quickly, right?
Yes,
Rather than being in constant consternation with them. Yeah. The thing about plateaus, they're only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. Every time that the word plateau that I come across the word plateau in any relation to martial arts, I think of, do you know Mastery, the book by George Leonard? Yeah,
I've heard of it.
he talks about the four paths to mastery, and the only path really there is, the mastery path, is a series of plateaus. Right, so you start out, your level goes up, and then you're on a plateau for a while, and then your level goes up again, and then you're on a plateau for a while, and then your level goes up again, and that is the mastery path. When I first read that book, I immediately recognized that when it comes in terms of running a martial art business, running a martial arts school, students join, their level goes up, then they hit the plateau, and that's when a lot of them drop out. That's when,
Correct.
right? That's when the kids say to the parents, "I don't want to go because I'm not learning anything new." Right? And then with adults, they don't realize that it's on that plateau where you're grooving what it is that you've learned. You're really learning to become, let's call it expert at that little bit that you've learned. And then based on that is when your level will go up again. But a lot of people don't have the patience or the dedication or the perseverance to stick to it when they plateau. Does that make sense?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plateau can also be a comfort ground.
Hmm. Yes.
And I don't know if you're aware of the stress curve where
No.
we start off, for instance, what's called bore out. And bore out is when there isn't, it's not necessarily laziness, but we just don't have enough to do. We don't have enough to practice.
Yeah.
So we start compensating by filling in the gaps. And then you move on to the comfort zone and you're doing what's expected,
Hmm.
but you're staying within that frame.
Right.
But where we reach our peak is when we hit the level known as stretch, and we're stretching ourselves beyond the plateau to discover new elements
Right.
on different new levels.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now this one will be interesting. A good teacher protects his pupils from his own influence.
Yeah, that's a good one, that one.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's intriguing because what do you think he means by that?
I think that Bruce actually encouraged us to become the navigators of our own path.
Hmm.
And this is actually came out in what do you call it, in a lot of his letters, where he always seems to make a stance to say, don't follow my journey, follow your own.
Hmm.
He was very big on self-discovery because, in a sense, when he found his, it electrified him.
Yeah.
You know that bit in Harry Potter when he gets the wand and
I
he holds it and all his hair stands up?
I
It's a
can
kind
imagine
of,
it. I don't watch Harry Potter.
so it was basically that kind of bump
Right.
when he found his self-discovery path. So I think he may have been referring as, I can show you to find your way.
Hmm.
You don't necessarily have to follow mine.
Yeah. But it's impossible for I think it's impossible for students to be uninfluenced by their teacher,
That was the problem that I
right?
had with,
Yeah.
because I can see positiveness in being influenced, but as long as you set the boundary where you
Right.
don't lose your own grip.
Yeah. But that's why I think he used the word protect, right?
Yeah,
Because it's impossible if you're teaching me, it's impossible for me to be uninfluenced by you. But you as the teacher have to be sure that you allow me to grow in my own way. And that's how you protect me from your influence,
perfect.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, this one surfaced on the Facebook page a little while ago. Man, the living creature, the created individual, is always more important than any established style or system. This is early stuff that made me fall in love with Bruce Lee. Like that kind of saying, I thought, man, this is so cool, you know. Um, but did this end up being contradictory?
It may have seemed that way because of what was written at different times.
Hmm.
Because in a sense, you see, if you remember his own journey, based on what we know,
Hmm.
he was always changing,
Hmm.
right? He was now. Can you imagine nowadays if there was no Bruce Lee and somebody came into you and says, I've actually found my own way. It's a mixture of Wing Chun boxing and fencing. Nowadays, if we didn't understand the link, because it's
Right.
already in his head by what he established,
Right.
you probably drop the eye and look at him, wondering where he's coming from.
Hmm.
So, in a sense, though, you see, I found that even though the things may be a contradiction, because maybe when he had wrote something, he was in a different place.
Hmm. Yeah.
But what was that one again?
Man, the living creature, to create an individual, is always more important than any established style or system.
That's a cracker one, like, isn't it?
Yeah, but see,
It is.
I know, because I know people who say, oh, but when Bruce Lee was in Hong Kong, he made reference to the fact that Black Belt magazine had recognized Jeet Kune Do as an established style.
Yeah.
So they try to de-emphasize what Bruce Lee is saying here, right? I disagree, because even if Bruce Lee wanted Jeet Kune Do to be recognized as an established style, the established style Jeet Kune Do has freedom built into it.
Yes.
So he's not going against his own meanings or anything, right?
But wasn't one of the reasons why he closed down his schools was that fear that it was becoming stylish? It was starting to become the very thing that he didn't want it to become, which was why there was a lot of emphasis on
Yeah.
it's only in.
Well, I mean, that's I've heard that that's the romantic idea behind it, but the real truth of it was that the schools had become financially insoluble. Like, they couldn't pay for themselves or whatever. And so there was an esoteric reasoning given behind the factual closing of them, right? So he was just being practical, but he wrapped that practicality in an idea that could have happened and did happen. I would say that in spite of him writing that and talking about why he closed the schools and what have you, after a time, there's a faction in Jeet Kune Do that definitely crystallized some of his teachings into this established style or system that is fixed and non-changing.
Yeah. Do you think though that would have been the overall aim if he had a
No,
step?
no, not at all. Not at all. I do not see any evidence in anything. Two of my JKD colleagues, Andy Wilson and Tim Bechera, as I like to call him, they taught me something very valuable. They said, in scholarship, if you're analyzing someone's scholarly works, you do consider what they wrote early on. But what's perhaps more important is what they wrote later on, because that's evidence of their evolving thought. And so early on, did I lose you? Hang on a second, guys. I think yeah, Aiden dropped out. Okay, let me get him back in.
Back.
Okay, all right. Here we go. All right, cool. So what I was saying, Tim and Andy taught me that in scholarship, you could almost pay more attention to what somebody wrote in the later stages. And so in 1965, Bruce Lee wrote, "I'm having my own style made up: Wing Chun, fencing, boxing." But in 71, he said, I have not created any fixed method that can be identified as Jeet Kune Do. So I take that as evolution of thought, and towards what became his end, he was more into the idea of freedom as a martial artist than the idea of a specific style that was based on three things.
Yes, I get it. I think that was a big issue with him, and that was to be labelled
Yeah.
with a particular with a format that he was basically against.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like trying to stick an albatross into a birdcage,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that way of thinking, you outgrow style and system.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
I
Okay.
actually believe myself he would have continued to evolve
Of
as
course.
things changed, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, this is a guy who was doing everything to fit in with the times in which he lived.
yes,
So as the times changed, he would have changed right alongside with them.
yes,
You know?
definitely without a doubt.
Yeah. All right. Okay. This one applies most definitely to the phenomenon known as the internet. For it is easy to criticize and break down the spirit of others, but to know yourself takes a lifetime. Because I guarantee you right now, as we speak, there's somebody typing something somewhere, maybe not in the feed, but they're criticizing me and you somewhere on the internet.
Oh, without a doubt. the power of the, the
All
power of
right?
the internet, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so what, right? Come on.
It's easy.
Uh,
It's very
yeah.
easy. It's it's almost like instant coffee. It's coffee, but it's not real. And
Right.
it's a very quick way to self validate
Yes.
by making
Yeah.
yourself compared to something that you feel that you're better at.
Yeah.
So in a sense, it's a bit like, for instance, um if you look at this stick, right, how do you make it bigger without touching it? Right? So, or how do you make this smaller without touching it? Right? So, in a sense, some people are tempted to break it,
Right.
but how you make it smaller is to put a bigger stick beside it. Right? So,
Yeah.
in other words, it's all about us becoming greater and bigger in what
Right.
we do,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to turn around and say, you're doing it all wrong,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I try to be very careful if I'm gonna say something about someone specifically. I try to be careful that it doesn't come off as criticism, because I differentiate between critique and criticism. You see, so when I have to say something about someone in particular, I try to make sure it, like, if I don't understand what they meant, or if I think that they meant something but they didn't express it very well, I'll include that in what I'm saying, because it's not my job to be critical of it, because anybody can be critical of anybody. In fact, I did I shot excuse me, I shot a video recently, and I tried to express to people that even if what you put out there is not considered high level by others, you should still continue to do it because you have the courage to put it out. A
Yes.
lot of people won't do that.
Yeah.
They'll type their crap and talk about this and talk about that, but you never see them put a video saying, oh, look at me, this is how I do it.
That's it. How
Yeah.
does your boat sail? And
Yeah.
that's now the thing is, you see, this is basically what happens. The whole thing about what we're referring to under concepts and original, for instance, it reminds me of two ships. And but the ships are docked, and one ship captain is saying to the other, you know, you shouldn't have that. That doesn't look good on the harbour. That doesn't look good to the onlookers. And then you're saying, but it's not needed. You know, we're adding this because it will take us further.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is we get caught up on lifeboats, we get caught up on the paint of the hub, we get caught up on the design of the sail. But the harbour is not where the damn boat should be. It's built for sailing. So when you turn around and you say that what you do is to become more equipped in your fighting ability, to me, that is a very, very tall order.
Yeah.
So, in other words, who gives a fuck about what your ship looks like? Can it sail?
Yeah.
And can it cope with the choppy weather when
Mhm.
it comes? And if it can,
Yeah.
show me your proof by taking your ship out into the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
So there's much talk about the boats being in the harbour. So the overall purpose of why the ship's there is completely missed,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
so, in a sense,
Yeah.
I'm not encouraging people to go out and pick fights, but you have to stand by what you're saying,
Right.
right? And say, well, okay, the ultimate is for me to be a better fighter.
Yeah.
Okay, where's your triangle? One said, where is your technical ability? The second said, show me what you do to achieve extreme fitness. And the last, tell me about your cultivation process. How do
Mhm.
you make it it? How do you make it it hits by itself?
Yeah.
And to me, if you've got them three combinations, then you're onto something. You
Yeah.
see?
Mhm.
So it's a very tall order, you see, when you look at others.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, I find that when criticism is overly expressed, there is a danger that the person expressing it drops their mask of security and it drops their mask of belief.
Mhm.
And then what basically what happens really in the day, I actually think I wrote something down about that one. Ah, it says how easy it is to criticize others. It's a quick fix to establish one's own ego.
Right.
To criticize only serves one purpose if it's not constructive, and that is it drops the mask of conscious security, and we seek nourishment from the approval of glory from others
Yeah. Yeah.
by, by saying what we do is real
Right.
and what you do isn't.
Yeah. As we were talking, I had this thought. So there's the famous, once I understood the art, a kick is a kick, a punch is a punch, and what have you, right? But now think about this. If a kick is a kick and a punch is a punch, then if the kick comes from something outside of Jeet Kune, who the hell cares? If it's an effective kick, right? So why would any so-called JKD person have a problem with somebody adapting a kick from another art? If a kick is a kick. So if the Savate people have effective kicks and you adopt a Savate kick into Jeet Kune, it's still a kick and a good kick at that. So what is the freaking problem?
Again, it's all part of it's right back to your very first statement about the ongoing process
Yeah,
and what I
yeah,
mentioned. And that's where I reckon that what I went. You're that is so spot on. You know what? Because in a sense, and I'm sure this won't go down well, but the physical attributes of what was expressed were his,
right.
and the people that he was working with were there to assist him with what it was that he wanted to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when I mentioned the last times the bananas were there, but they were green?
Mm-hmm.
So it hadn't ripened yet. So what do? Do you just let it die? Or do you try and bring it further
Right,
based on its intention?
right.
And the only people who knew that are the people who worked with him and
Yeah,
trained with him.
yeah, yeah. And some of them got the message. It's like the Bible where the word falls on the rock, on the fertile soil, and whatever. Some people got the message behind it, and some people didn't really get the message. They got the physicality of it, You know, they got techniques and what have you, but the overall messaging, I think they for whatever reason they failed to get that.
Because Bruce is bigger than the art. That's
Yeah,
rare.
yeah.
Bruce Lee's bigger than the
Hmm.
art itself.
Hmm.
You know, that's why, for instance, look at Tai Chi, for example, Wu style, Chen style, Yang style, Sun style,
Hmm.
Wudang style, Taekwondo's. You've Northern praying mantis, Southern praying mantis. You've all these different, and nobody seems to really have a problem with it. They just
Hmm.
accept that it's there, and
Hmm.
each one has its own different, different things.
Right.
Jeet Kune, though, it's different because it's all about Bruce as opposed to the art.
Ah, see, now you make me feel bad because I said to Rob Lee that his statement that Jeet Kune Do should stand apart from Bruce Lee was absurd. Now you make me feel bad I said that to him. Huh. I get because I mean no, you're quite right. You're quite right. Because only people in Sun style Tai Chi, and maybe people in other Tai Chi systems know who the founder of Sun style is. But I don't, right? I don't, because Tai Chi is not my thing. So I get what Rob means about Jeet Kune Do standing apart. I don't think standing apart is the best way to describe it, but I do think that we have to guard against Bruce Lee being bigger than the art. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, 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 yeah. You're right.
But you
And
see,
now I feel bad.
but the thing is, though, remember, you've Bruce Lee, the actor, you've
Right.
Bruce Lee, the writer, the
Yeah,
philosopher, the
yeah,
martial artist.
yeah.
He is all things,
Mhm.
depending on what angle that you go for.
Right.
But also, remember the electrifying charisma
Yeah.
that he brought,
Yeah.
to the world when it came to
True, true.
introducing Chinese martial arts. And I
Hmm.
think, and again, this is opinion, but some people just clawed into it and won't let go,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. The superstardom.
Yes,
The superstar.
clawed
Yeah.
into it, and,
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
they,
because if I can attach myself to the superstar, then maybe I can get some of that light can shine on me.
I can maybe get something that he had.
Yeah.
And that's the very thing that he wanted to protect people from becoming.
Right.
And that could also, it comes back to we need to protect from influence. We
Hmm.
don't want clones or
Right.
Dolly the sheep run around. Uh, it's all about helping you to self discovery of what
Yeah.
works for you.
Yeah. All right. The less effort, the faster and more powerful you will be.
Back in them days, the majority of martial arts, with the exception maybe of judo or aikido, they were all hard styles.
Yeah.
Now, what that says to me is, do you remember the little story that he was going to introduce at the beginning of Game of Death about the oak tree and the willow?
Um, I'm familiar with the idea of the oak tree and the willow, but
Right. So
I
to
didn't know that
me,
was part of Game of Death.
no, he talked about using it at the very
Okay.
beginning. You
Okay.
see, this is going back 70s stuff like.
Hmm.
Now, in a sense, tension and rigidness is to contract one's limbs. But in order to initiate, you gotta contract, then release and go at the same time. I think what he was saying here was that I've got tensions and rigidness is to contract one's limbs to execute the perfect strike. However, we must avoid tension and just let it go with the flow.
Yeah.
And I remember even kind of practicing that in various other stuff years ago, We don't need to be hard and rigid because it slows down the execution.
Hmm.
It's just fast goes with naturality,
Hmm.
naturalness,
Yeah,
instinct, and just let it go.
yeah. It's kind of like the difference between Muhammad Ali boxing and young George Foreman boxing.
Yes,
You know, right? Yeah.
yes. Muhammad
Okay.
Ali was so relaxed in the ring,
Right.
and that's how he was able to execute his movement with
Yeah.
such flow,
Yeah.
like a paint, like doing some calligraphy, with your brush.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The always favorite. It's not the daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential.
I don't believe that that's referring to additional styles.
Ah, you're
I
gonna get
think
yourself in trouble.
I think that's referring to what's already in.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's like, what is there to hack if it's already there? Forms and drills and patterns
Hmm.
can be too much to remember for it to be remembered to work. So it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it refers to adding styles, but what's already there.
Right.
However, what's already there needs to be tested.
Yeah.
And once it's tested, then you will have identified what needs to be hacked in
Hmm.
order for what needs to work for you.
Hmm. Yeah. So when it comes to this, because sometimes they talk about the lump of clay, right? How the artist doesn't keep adding clay, but he chisels away and what have you. But here's the problem with that. If he starts with too small a lump of clay, he's not going to produce what he intended to. So
No,
you have to be sure. You have to be sure that your lump of clay is actually big enough, you see, for you to start hacking away. But if you
that's it.
start with too small a lump of clay, you're not going to get where you thought you were going.
You've nothing to work with. So
Right.
if you look at, for instance, roundhouse kick, reverse roundhouse, crescent kick, hook kick, axe kick, all these different executions of the kick. So, in other words, you can't turn around and know two and expect to hack away
Right.
because if you're 6'2", and you're quite lean and light in your feet, the kicks that work for you are not going to work for me
Hmm.
because I'm a lot smaller. In fact, you can see my trainers in my passport photograph. So in a sense, I have to discover
Right.
between the clay what is going to work for me when it
Yeah.
comes to that execution.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, so depending on our makeup, depending on our build, our sense of gravity, we
Hmm.
need to find out ourselves
Yeah.
what is it that will actually work.
Yeah. And I mean, I look, I don't think that it's impossible for there ever have been somebody working with clay who didn't realize at some point, oh, I got to add a little bit more. Where is it written that? Did I freeze again? Did the whole thing freeze? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and see you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, everything froze here on my end. Um, okay, but you can still hear me, right?
Yes, I can
Okay.
see
All
you
right.
as well.
Okay. All right. So okay, we're back. Cool. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything written anywhere that says that never working with clay has anybody not added on. So it's stupid when people talk about that. Okay, this one actually I just realized goes back to the earlier one because this is self knowledge involves relationship. Well, wait, actually, it's the same thing. So yeah, oh, okay, I didn't even see that. Self-knowledge involves relationship. To know oneself is to study oneself in action with another person. I remember, I remember when I first read this one, probably because of the relationship I was in at the time, is why it impacted me it impacted me so hard. But even if you just keep this in the physical realm, right? You can't shadow box all your life. You got to take that technique and test it out
Yes,
with somebody else,
exactly. Yes,
you know?
100% correct.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Especially if your order is to become an ultimate fighter,
mhm,
to say that what you do is not for sport, it's not for display, it's not for show. This is reality here. And as I say, that is a very, very that's a very tall order
oh,
to
yeah,
actually meet, considered how violence itself has evolved over the past 40 or 50 years alone.
right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. Okay. So let me see. We just got a few
What I
more.
what
Yeah.
I got for that one was like is to let go of thoughts of conclusive arts in a sense means that you're bounded by weeds and thorns, which can choke the breath of self discovery.
Mm,
In its use to be liberated in order to find our own truth.
okay.
Our cup should always be empty to discover the new method that fits in with our own path. It is here where we compare ships by its beauty
Right.
and where it sits without knowing if it can actually sail.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that actually touches, I would say, on everything that we have, because we have four more. What you just said there touches on everything that we said. So, all right. So let's see. Um, and before we finish this up, you gotta I'll let everybody know that you and I will both, when we're done, you don't have to do it tonight, but we'll go through the comments, and anything that we need to reply to, we'll go ahead and reply to. So guys, look out for that. All right, so let's wrap up these last four. Um, I took these from whatchamacallit, Liberate Yourself from Classical Karate, because I've become, in the past few weeks, I've become a little bit obsessed with that, because I think it is definitely the thing we should go to find out what was on Bruce Lee's mind in the latter days. So I hope my comrades in martial arts will read the following paragraphs with open-mindedness, leaving all the burdens of preconceived opinions and conclusions behind. This act, by the way, has in itself a liberating power. After all, the usefulness of the cup is in its emptiness. He's so slick.
Without a doubt, yeah. Was that the
Yeah.
last one, or was that the third?
No, that's we got three more after that.
Right. Yes, that pretty much says it.
Yeah.
Is and the empty cup symbolizes to be open for knowledge and change and
Yeah.
an additional learning.
Right.
And
It,
again, you see, it relates back again to the very first one,
yes.
where
Yeah.
things are always moving.
Yeah.
Look at your blood circulation. What happens when an artery clots and the blood can't move? The heart bloody dies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So everything in science and in
Right.
biology grows and moves.
Yeah. So why would it not apply to Jeet Kune? See, so this is the thing. See, this is what something, for example, this is what people don't understand about Dan Inosanto, right? So Dan Inosanto did not need to go study anything else. He had enough, but he is showing by his own example the usefulness of the cup is in its emptiness. You think he needed to study with more than one Wing Chun guy? Did he need to study with more than one Filipino guy? Did he need to study with more than one Penjak Silat guy? Did he need to study Muay Thai and Cambodian kickboxing? No, but he's illustrating how to stay open to the acquisition of knowledge of understanding, right?
Kitty, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's liberation.
yeah. See, you know what the problem is? Innocano is too high level for some people.
Yeah.
He really is. He's just too high level for some people. All right. Okay, let's wrap up. So true observation begins when one sheds set patterns, and true freedom of expression occurs when one is beyond systems.
Right.
Yeah,
I got that nothing is absolute, as
yeah,
system will give you.
right.
We hold the key to our own development. We must explore and go beyond the limitation that method can give us.
Mm-hmm.
Do not allow the clouds of ignorance disable you, which is like putting an albatross into a cage.
Yeah,
It won't be able to expand its wing.
yeah,
And system can do that to you. When you say, no, I'm not going beyond what's here,
right.
that you could end up being a bigger bird for the cage.
Yeah,
You're,
it's interesting, right? Because Bruce Lee was so adept at saying the same thing, at delivering essentially the same message, but in multiple ways, in different words.
yes,
You know what I mean, right? Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny that some of the same people who revel in the fact that he had 2,500 books in his personal library, and he had multiple books on the same subject, are the same people who they revel in that, but they rebel against the idea of multiple sources for understanding in the art.
yes,
Right? That doesn't
very
make
much so. Yeah,
doesn't make any sense
it,
to
it's
me at all.
it's clinging onto the signpost.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's you gotta. I mean, I know this come up before, but we have to measure what was being measured against back in the 60s
Yes. Yes.
as to compared to what we have now.
Right.
I mean, you could base, and they were all very traditional hard styles. The Okinawan karate, the
Mm-hmm.
Korean taekwondo, tang sudo, what Chuck Norris did.
Mm-hmm.
These were all kind of set pattern kata based hard
Yeah.
styles. A lot of them.
Yeah.
You didn't have the flexibility of savate or Thai boxing or
Right.
some of the grappling stuff. Because what was happening when the octagon came in, the stand up people were learning the ground, and the
Mm-hmm.
ground people were learning the stand up because what
Yeah.
they were doing wasn't absolute to cope
Right.
with the many different things that were coming.
Right.
The whole thing's grown.
The funny thing is that the Taekwondo people, because I mean, they're some of the best martial arts business people that there are. And so when it was no longer taboo to look at other arts, what did they start doing? They started bringing stuff in from other arts into their Taekwondo training. I know that for a fact.
Yes.
You see, so how come? So again, it's ludicrous for people to think, oh, but Jeet Kune is the one that preaches total freedom. But in our version of total freedom, you don't adopt or adapt anything from anywhere else, right? Because Jeet Kune Do is different from the traditional styles. The traditional styles are modernizing and adapting stuff from outside. But here you are in Jeet Kune Do going, no, Jeet Kune Do is fixed. It's just this. And you're supposed to be the one preaching freedom.
That's I and this is just my I can't follow that way
Yeah,
once if that is it, because it's clearly obvious that
yeah,
as far as the expression was concerned, when he passed, he left a gap. And where things aren't perfect is that it was left that way.
Hmm.
So do you carry it forward or do you seal it off?
Right.
And if you're prepared to seal it off, well, then say what's in the seal, what's actually there.
Hmm.
And obviously, and if people want to take it further, I don't understand why that cannot be accepted, because we're all different
Yeah.
and we have a different way of finding our own truth.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's so I'm gonna skip the one about combat and totality and what have you, and just finish up with this one. Do remember, however, that Jeet Kune Do is merely a convenient name. I am not interested with the term itself. I am interested in its effect of liberation when JKD is used as a mirror for self-examination.
I got JKD was Bruce Lee's way of discovering his own truth. It
Mhm.
was very personal and it allowed him not to become self contained by style, but to be efficient. We must explore all options and
Mhm.
create our own simplicity.
Yeah. So I think I left out the part where and this is something that you hear people talking about, and it's something that I've said it before. I think is grossly misinterpreted. It's when Bruce Lee says Jeet Kune Do is just a name, don't fuss over it. I think that the pronoun it is referring to the name Jeet Kune Do. The pronoun it is not referring to the art. I think the art is something we should fuss over. The name, however, as he said, I'm interested in its effect of liberation when used as a mirror for self-examination. That's why we fuss over the art. The name, yeah, but I think people misinterpret that, and
Yeah.
they think that he's saying don't fuss over the art.
I got from there that the thought and attitude towards what you're applying
Mhm.
was just as important or not more than the physical expression,
Yeah,
because the physical expression was his. And I think that he was experimenting with it before things started to go all crazy for him. And eventually, it may have come to a level where it has its own physical identity.
right.
Um, and this is why every person, either be Ted Wong, Dan and Asando, they they all seem to have adapted something different. But it's interesting that Taki, who was the highest grade, and Dan and Asando, the terminology they used the same, which was
Hmm.
John Fan, which was interesting, considered they were the ones that spent the longest time.
Right.
So they obviously know things that's maybe different to what was given to somebody else. And again, if we look at it as art, what I see in a picture is going to be different from yours or anyone else.
Yeah. Yes.
So and that's basically the art that I see.
Right.
That in a sense, because of its embryo stage on physical expression, the main driving force was the philosophical side, because that's what was in place to prevent it from
Hmm.
coming systemized.
Yes. That's what's important about recognizing that it's both art and philosophy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But to me, the both of them go together.
Of
That's what
course.
makes it unique. And you
Yes.
couldn't have one without the other.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like cracking an egg. You either have the yolk or you have the white bit. You know, the both of them have to be in union.
Right. Yeah. All right, my friend. Let's put a wrap on this. So again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. I think this one will probably be the most commented episode. So Aiden, you and I are gonna have we're gonna have our work cut out for us going through the comments and what have you. But I really appreciate your coming back and talking to me again, my
No
friend.
worries. It's a pleasure.
All right.
Look
Okay.
after
All right.
yourself.
Yes. Okay. All right. You take care, man.
Yeah, all the best, brother. You take
All
care
right.
of yourself. See you
Okay.
now.
See ya.
God bless you.
Bye. All right. How cool is that? Okay. Episode 242. So you guys, I'll, yeah, I think I might have some time to take a look at what you had to say this evening before I gotta run. Anyhow, okay. So, like I said at the beginning, next Friday's dialogue partner will be confirmed probably later this evening or tomorrow, and so I'll get that word out to you. You guys know the deal. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D Woods, at PayPal.me/Unified MA Miami. The Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, raw but edited version is still available, and that's it for selling. That's terrible selling, right? So that's it for this evening. Go ahead, comment. I'll take a look at and see what we need to talk about. And yeah, all right. You guys have a great weekend wherever you are, whatever you're doing. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Talk soon. Take care now.